Have you ever been to an art gallery and witnessed people observing the art and standing in front of it and looking at it, and you're sitting back there and not really understanding why or how they could be so enticed by an image? Yes, it could be pretty, but you just don't understand how it could captivate somebody as much as it does. Well, don't feel bad because you're not alone, and I'm also going to be explaining that to you today in this video. Art is a media, just like any other form of media. YouTube videos, or TikTok shorts, or even books versus movies. They are all different forms of media, and you have to be in the correct mindset to know how to consume them. So for instance, let's take the Lord of the Rings. You could look at the books, or you could also look at the theatrical releases. Obviously, you could not enjoy the books if you did not know how to read, as opposed to the movies if you did not understand the idea of a cinematic release where you couldn't just absorb 10 minutes at a time. Instead, you would have to sit through an entire 3-hour movie to be able to understand that. Well, if you just broke it down into 10-minute segments and watched it over the span of a month, you would not be able to fully grasp what was going on in the movie. That is exactly the same thing as art. Art is a form of media, and it's a form of media that you can easily learn to read and enjoy. To first be able to understand what you are perceiving and actually read an artwork, you need to understand the foundations of art and what it was originally created for and how it has evolved into what we have today. So to do that, we need to do a little bit of art history.
I suppose you think you're the one to do it.
For most artists and most things, art is purposeful. There's a reason it's there. And that is the first step in understanding that when you are looking at art, you're not just looking at something that is pretty to hang up on a wall. It has something in it that the artist wants to say. It is no different than reading a book. You just need to know what to look for. Most of the times, art is personal, very personal. And there's a reason for that. If you've been in my class long enough, or if you've been trying to do art, you'll realize that art takes a lot of time. And time is something that on this planet, you don't get any more of than what you're given. That's quite literally it. I mean, you can always go out and make more money. If you want a better job, go get a better job and make more money. You can always regain your levels back if you lose a video game. Time, on the other hand, is something that you'll never get back. So it only makes sense that if you're devoting your time into it, then you're going to be putting a little bit of yourself into it. And that's why art has meaning and so universally loved. It's a language that everyone can understand regardless of the language barrier between the artist and the viewer. Now, art was originally made for purpose of history and to help us as hunter-gatherers, the human race, to know where we have been at before. So it was kind of like a historical landmark. Cave paintings were actually used to document livestock and hunted animals that were present in an area before we moved to someplace else. During that time, we would hunt the animals around us. Whenever we depleted all the livestock from that area, we would just pack up and move somewhere else. But we quickly discovered that just haphazardly going different places didn't really work out because we didn't know if the land would be populated in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years or even 100 years. We didn't have any records to show what it was like before we hunted it. Ancient humans went into caves and painted on cave walls because cave walls were away from the weather. It was a documentation of all the creatures that were valid food, what we were hunting, and If, say, we come back to this area after some time, we go into a cave and we say, hey, look, there is a elk right there, but I don't see any elk around here. Well, that means that we need to come back at a later time to let them repopulate more. It was pretty straightforward. It's a really good historical landmark for us, and it really helped humanity survive. Next, we're skipping forward a few thousand years, and we are going to be looking at how art could be used as propaganda, or it could also be used as a scare tactic. You see, the Assyrian army ruled much of the ancient world for quite a bit of time. And part of the reason why they ruled so long was, yes, they were a warrior civilization, so they strived on war, but a lot of it boiled down to people were just scared of them, and some of it was because of the art. You see, during this time, we didn't have conventional weapons that we have today, and humans were kind of like, we were on the food chain, but we weren't exactly not hunted, shall we say. You see, humans were kind of short, not very fast, ran on 2 feet, and lions were very big, hungry, weighed more than us typically, or could weigh more than us, and we were very easy prey. So the Assyrians decided, hey, you know what? Why don't we do something that's going to scare everybody else away from us so they don't even think about messing with us? Oh, I know what we can do. Let's gather a bunch of lions, and then once a year we can have a lion hunt where they would release hundreds of lions into the streets and people would just massacre a bunch of lions. Did this actually happen? Don't know. I am skeptic of it myself, but then again, it very well could have happened. Nobody is around now to say that it did or didn't, but we do have artworks like this that they decorated all around their city to show their massive lion hunts that they did every year. And they did this as a scare tactic because everybody else would see this and go, oh my gosh, did you hear about the Assyrians? Yeah, they are crazy. I heard they hunt lions. Yeah, and they do it for fun. Yeah, so people were like, yeah, those guys are nuts. We ain't gonna mess with them. And that's how art was used by the Assyrians as a propaganda type thing to get people to not oppose them. And it worked great for hundreds of years. Next, we're going to look at some Claude Monet paintings, the Impressionist paintings. And the Impressionists were really keen on trying to capture light the moment that it happened. Claude Monet specifically was really into trying to capture the feel of what it was like to be right there in that moment. And his art represents this. This is a great example of Impressionism and the feeling and emotion of being at that one place in that moment in time. And he captured it beautifully. You can feel the emotion in the blues and the solitude and how calm everything is, the reflection of the light just bouncing off of the water. There's so much emotion going on in this piece, and it's calming, while at the same time, it's kind of off-putting. That's the emotion that Claude Monet was trying to get through with his artworks. Now we're going to be moving into how art can actually tell an internal struggle and a story. This artwork by Vincent van Gogh was for a very long time considered to be his very last piece. Now, I'm not going to get into detail of what happened to Vincent van Gogh. If you would like to look it up, you can. But the reason why this was considered to be his very last piece was not only because it was one of the few paintings that he created before his, let's call it an accident, but this also plays into his emotional state at the time. You see, during this time, Vincent van Gogh was suffering from a lot of internal damage from his choice of foods, his, say, habits that he had acquired, and he was not in the best of health. This painting represents what his mind was thinking at the time. You see 3 different paths in this artwork, and they are diverging in different ways. All the way over to the left, you can see a path with green grass. This path represents where he would possibly be at if he did what the doctors told him to do, which was change his eating habits, basically stop painting, and follow along and try to get better and get him better health. Obviously, he didn't want to do that because he loved painting. That's what he loved to do. And his paints were what was killing him because his paints were very toxic. All the way over on the right, however, is a path that he knew would end shortly. It's a short path. It's a path where he continues his track of what he's doing exactly what he's doing, and continuing on. He knows if he keeps this up, his body's not going to be able to make it. And then you have the path in the middle, which leads to his unfortunate accident, and the black crows represent his departure. It was either going to be a goodbye to art or his goodbye in general. And now we come to an artist, Duchamp, which is more of a comedy artist than anything else. Well, he got a call from a gallery and said, "Hey, Duchamp, yeah, we love your stuff and we want to have you in our gallery." And he was all like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Oh, I'll be there. Okay, great. It's going to be in like 3 months. Have your stuff up here." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, sure. Sounds good." You know, a couple months go by, and about a month away, and the gallery calls him up and says, "Hey, just wondering, did you ever, get that stuff? Like, are we going to get it?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I haven't forgot. Yeah, I'll get there. I'll get it to you. Don't worry about it." Then about 2 weeks before the gallery showing is going to show his stuff, they call him up and say, "Hey, we need your stuff like now, because we got to set it up, and it's only like 2 weeks away. Where's your stuff?" He's like, "Don't worry about it. I will get it there. I'm still working on it." Just a day or so before the gallery starts showing his stuff, which he doesn't have, he walks by a construction site where they are replacing all of the urinals in a building, and he goes in, he grabs every one of the urinals, marches them over to the art gallery, hangs them up on the wall, signs his name to it, and sits back and basically laughs as people come in to observe his urinals that he just stole from a construction site that has his name on it. And that was his contribution. He was making a statement that art is literally anything that people want it to be, and it doesn't have to be anything at all to be appreciated. He was making a statement, and that was basically his entire gimmick. Now, this next one, I'm going to let you decide a little bit with. I'm going to give you just a touch of background on this artwork. This artwork is of Napoleon. If anyone doesn't know who Napoleon is, which I'm sure that some of you are going to say this, Napoleon historically has been remembered as being a very short leader, which is entirely not true. Napoleon was a leader of the French Republic, and he eventually became leader of France, and pretty much at the time was one of the very few people who almost conquered all of the known world. Like, he was a big deal. However, he has been historically remembered as being short. That's not actually true. In fact, Napoleon was average height for the time. He was literally an average dude, and that's why everybody liked him, because he was charismatic, he knew what he wanted, he was a good leader, and he was an average, down-to-earth guy. And everybody loved him for that reason. Of course, politics didn't, and politicians and things like that, and but lots of history with Napoleon. If you really want to look him up, you can, but basically, the French people loved Napoleon. Hands down, that's about it. So, why exactly is he remembered to be short? The reason for that is because of the paintings, like the one you see here. If you are familiar with horses, which I assume that some of you are, you would know that the average horse stands about 5'6", 5'8", somewhere around there, like just shy of 6 foot tall. That is standing still, standing up on all fours. You know, roughly 6 foot tall. This horse is not standing perfectly straight. It is reared up with his front hooves in the air, rearing up, and the person riding this, Napoleon, is absolutely massive compared to the horse. That is why everybody remembers him as being short, because in all of his pictures or paintings, he was always depicted like this. Even though, for those of you who do ride horses, you would notice that a horse like that would never actually make it up a rocky mountain like he's doing there. So, if the horse is either really, really, really small, or Napoleon is really, really, really big, and the horse is also put somewhere it would never be, I wonder why the artist decided to do that. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about that, come up with your own ideas, and I will tell you the correct answer shortly. So go ahead, pause this video, and then we'll convene in 5 seconds. So I'm sure that some of you might have guessed it. It is to show everyone that Napoleon is big, large, tall, and in charge. He is the leader that's going to lead the French to victory. He is going to be on a massive white steed because that is kingly. That is powerful. He's going to be every bit as tall, if not taller, than anything else in the picture that he's there, because he is the most important and the biggest and the tallest. He is the center of attention. That's the reason why he's there. And a reason why he looks like that, a reason why the horse is standing on top of a rocky mountain instead of what would be more suitable, which would be a donkey. And if you think about it, if you replace that horse with a donkey, it would actually make more sense, the height difference. Because in that artwork there, Napoleon would be more suited to riding a donkey, which a donkey's average height is like 4 foot and not almost 6 foot. So it would be more like he's an average height human if he was riding a donkey. But a donkey's not as elegant. So this leads me to your all's assignment for today. Today, I have something for you all to do, and that is I'm going to be showing you 2 artworks. These 2 artworks, I want you independently to answer these questions about it. I want you to look at the artworks, both of them, and I want you to guess the meaning, the story, and the emotion or the feeling behind the artwork, whatever the artist was trying to say. I want you to look at that, and I want you to answer that. What do you think the meaning is, the story, or the emotion or the feeling? Whichever one of those that you think the artist was trying to convey. And then I want you to give supporting evidence of your thoughts. Now for today, I want you to have this to be handwritten. So write it down, document your supporting thoughts with it, and try and answer what you think those are. You are not allowed to look these up. You are only going to be going off of what you think the artwork means. And here is your artworks that you are going to be looking at. You have Vincent van Gogh's A Starry Night and Grant Wood's American Gothic. I'm going to allow this to be on the screen for a while, and once we have everything done, about 5 minutes or so before the end of class, go ahead and hit play on this video and we will see if you are correct. Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night was actually a painting that was supposed to resemble the story of Joseph and the coat of many colors from the Bible. Vincent van Gogh actually was a preacher there for a while. He tried to become a preacher, and he always aligned himself very closely with Joseph from the Bible because, just like Joseph, he had 12 siblings. And Vincent van Gogh put himself in this artwork as being the moon, the brightest thing in the sky that is looking down on the city. Just like in the story, he thought that he was going to rise to stardom because he was going to be the best painter that that city had ever seen. And all of his other siblings around him would be in awe of his glory that he would have. However, that never really came to pass. If he had taken better care of himself, he probably would have lived to see his own fame, which is really sad. Next is Grant Wood's American Gothic. And American Gothic was actually created to convey a feeling. It was right after World War I. It was before World War II. It was after the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. And this was during a time where money was really tight, like the economy was starting to build back up, but at the same time, life was hard. And this artwork was meant to show the struggle that the normal American family has. It's made to give a sense of doubt, pressure, as well as just knowing that you still have to get up the next day and do what you need to do. Life still goes on, even though things look bad. Life still goes on, and you still have to pick yourself up, and you still have to continue with what you do because you are still here. I hope that I have allowed you to better understand art, and I also hope that you enjoy our next lessons coming up where you all are going to be deciphering art on your own. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.